What happens when a middle-aged wildlife volunteer jumps into a freezing river to save a bleeding puma, only to realize someone set the trap on purpose? What she uncovered next flipped the entire narrative on its head. I wasn't planning to jump into a river that morning. Let's get that straight. I woke up thinking about groceries and overdue bills, not mountain cats drowning in cold water. But life's got this sick sense of humor, doesn't it? My name's Raina Nash. I'm 49, allergic to stupidity, and I spend my weekends volunteering with wildlife rescue teams. Not because it's trendy, but because somebody needs to do something decent around here. That day, I was out near the San Pedro River scouting terrain with my field pack and a half-dead GPS that hadn't been updated since the Bush administration. The air smelled like pine, sweat, and sunburn. Pretty standard for Arizona. I was making my way down a rocky incline, the kind that loves to twist ankles and destroy cell signals when something shifted. You ever feel silence slam down on you like a weight? That kind. The birds stopped chirping. Even the bugs shut up. I knew right then something was off. Then I heard it. A splash. Not the playful kind, violent, sharp, followed by a strangled sound that made the hair on my arms stand up. It was coming from the river bend up ahead. I dropped my pack, tore through the brush like it owed me money, and stopped dead. There it was, a young puma, maybe 40 pounds, struggling in the current. One leg was caught in some twisted wire, probably from one of those illegal snares trappers set and conveniently forget about. Its eyes were wide, wild, and glassy. It wasn't fighting anymore, it was sinking. Now let me be clear, I've been around enough animals to know when it's too late. But something in me snapped. Maybe it was the way her paw kept trying to climb nothing, or maybe I was just tired of seeing things die when they didn't have to. So yeah, I jumped. That water hit me like a slap from God, cold, fast, angry. The current yanked at my legs like it had an agenda. I fought my way toward the cat, dodging debris, praying I wouldn't get a lungful of river muck and regret. I got to her just as she started going under. Her fur was slick with blood and mud, and her breathing was ragged. She didn't fight me. Didn't have the strength. I looped one arm around her chest, kicked hard, and pulled us both toward the bank. My shoulder slammed into a submerged log. Something cracked. Maybe the log, maybe me. No time to check. By some miracle or muscle memory, I got us to shore. Dragged her half up onto a patch of mud and roots and collapsed beside her like a used towel. I was shaking, soaked, and bleeding, but she was alive, and I counted that as a win. That's when I looked up. Across the river, maybe 30 feet away, someone was watching us. Tall, still. No backpack, no fishing rod, no reason to be there. Just standing behind a cottonwood tree, barely visible, but there. I saw the glint of something metallic. A lens, maybe. They didn't wave. They didn't move. And then, gone. What happened next changed everything. You won't want to miss how this turns inside out. Let me tell you something about silence. It doesn't mean peace. Sometimes it's just the sound right before things go sideways. After I dragged the puma out of the river, I did what any halfway sane person would do. I ripped off my soaked flannel, wrapped her bleeding leg, and whispered whatever calming nonsense came to mind. It wasn't pretty. She whimpered, and I cursed under my breath like I was trying to scare death itself away. Her leg was a mess, barbed wire wrapped so tight it had cut through the skin and halfway into muscle. Old trap, no doubt. Probably set by one of those weekend warriors who thinks hunting means drinking beer, loading rifles, and setting cruel junk in the woods for bragging rights. I reached for my emergency knife, the one clipped to my boot for just in case. Never thought in case would mean field surgery on a wildcat, but here we were. I cut through the wire as gently as I could, hands slick and shaking. She barely flinched. That scared me more than if she'd tried to bite. "Come on, girl," I muttered. "Don't check out on me now. We both crawled out of that river for a reason." Now here's where it got strange. And I've seen strange. A branch cracked behind me, not like a squirrel or bird. Heavy, intentional. I turned fast, knife still in hand, expecting a bear, a ranger, maybe even that shadowy watcher from across the bank. Instead, it was a man in camouflage. Mid-50s, scruffy beard, face like someone who hasn't been told no in 20 years. And he wasn't smiling. "You touch my cat," he said flatly. "Your cat?" I stood up. Wet, muddy, freezing. And now, apparently trespassing on some psychopath's fantasy zoo. "She's not yours," I said, trying to keep my voice calm but firm. "She's wild. She was trapped and almost drowned." "She was bait," he snapped. "You ruined it." That's when my stomach sank. Bait. Not a rescue. Not a lost animal. This wasn't a coincidence. That Puma had been left there, bleeding, suffering, and to lure something bigger. Maybe a male, maybe a pack, maybe even people like me. "You sick bastard," I said. And oh, I meant it. "You left her to die?" He didn't answer. Just stared at me like I was the intruder, like I was the threat. His hand dropped to his belt. Not fast, but deliberate. Like he was thinking about options. "You gonna report me?" he asked. "Thinking about it," I said, stepping just slightly in front of the Puma, who was watching all this with one half-lidded golden eye. I could almost hear her thinking, "Lady, you got no idea what you just stepped into." The man smirked, not the fun kind. Then he turned and walked away. Just like that, into the brush. No threat, no apology. Like this was Tuesday. I stood there, heart pounding, waiting to hear a car engine or another branch crack. Nothing, just the wind and that eerie quiet again. You ever have one of those moments when you realize this whole thing, every inch of it, was never random? That maybe you were being watched not just across the river, but the whole time? Yeah. That feeling settled in my gut and refused to leave. I had saved a Puma, but I'd walked straight into something much uglier than drowning. This is the turning point. Everything you've been waiting for? It's coming now. Stick around to see how this woman flipped the whole thing on its head. I didn't sleep that night. You would think pulling a bleeding Puma from a freezing river would earn you a quiet evening and a sandwich, but no. Instead, I sat in the back of my Jeep Wrangler, Puma curled in a blanket beside me, headlights off, every muscle locked like I was waiting for a second ambush. I'd seen his face, the man in camouflage, and more importantly, he'd seen mine. So I did what any stubborn woman with a wildlife license, a gut full of outrage, and a folder of field contacts would do. I made calls. A lot of them. By sunrise, I had two things. A vet on the way and a drone operator named Mike who owed me a favor after I pulled his dog out of a barbed fence last spring. He didn't ask questions. Just launched his drone over the section of river I marked on GPS, while I fed the Puma soft-cooked turkey from a camping stove and tried not to cry into my coffee. That morning, I learned something real disturbing. This baiting thing? Not new. Mike's footage picked up two more Pumas, both collared, both weak and cornered near similar trap sites. And guess what? Same exact layout, same fencing, same spacing, not random, organized. Worse, someone had set up trail cameras, hidden, motion-triggered, facing the riverbank, right where I'd dragged the cat out. You know what that meant? Someone wanted footage, and they got it. Footage of a civilian rescuing a dying Puma, of a confrontation, of a setup. That same afternoon, the vet arrived. Old-school guy named Dr. Howl, the kind of man who calls animals patience and humans interference. He took one look at the Puma, muttered, "These people never change," and started stitching her up like it was his kitchen table. But here's the part that nearly knocked the breath out of me. Dr. Hall recognized the trap setup, said it matched photos from a case 2 years ago involving a conservation group that turned out to be a cover for wildlife trafficking. Big names, clean websites, even had social media pages with pictures of smiling interns hugging wolves. It was all a lie, a polished one, but still a lie. Now I knew why someone was watching. I wasn't just a witness anymore. I was a liability. So I made a decision, one I don't regret for a second. I turned over every photo, every drone clip, every trap location. I wrote up a field report, sent it to 3 rangers, 2 journalists, and 1 senator's office with urgent in the subject line. I didn't sugarcoat it. I told them what I saw, what I filmed, and exactly who showed up afterward like they were checking inventory. And you know what happened next? The story exploded. And not just because of the Puma, because people, real people, finally saw what was hiding behind those fake eco-logos and fundraising slogans. They saw how easy it was to abuse a system built on good intentions and pretty brochures. The footage of me pulling that Puma from the river, it aired on national television. Some host with big hair and a serious voice called me a hero. I wasn't flattered. I was furious. I didn't save that animal to get clapped for. I did it because she was dying and no one else was going to do a damn thing. The Puma, by the way, she healed. Went back into the wild 3 weeks later with a limp and a stare that could melt steel. I named her Bramble, not because she was soft, but because she fought her way through the thorns and came out on the other side still breathing. As for the man in camo, never saw him again. But sometimes when I'm out by that river, I feel eyes on me. Like the wild remembers. Like justice sometimes just needs a pair of boots, a pocket knife, and someone too tired to keep pretending things are okay.